Coming up, we're going to talk about walking a reservation. If you don't know what that is, join the club. Coming up next on this episode of The DVC Show. The DVC Show is brought to you by DVCstore.com. Since 1994, the DVC Store has sold more than 25,000 DVC resale contracts. Let their experts welcome you home to Disney Vacation Club. Head over to DVCstore.com to check out all their current DVC resale listings. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends, Miss Jackie Gailey.
Hi, everybody.
From the DVC Store, Mr. Jerry Saito.
Hello.
Also from the DVC Store, Miss Jamie Carr.
Hello.
And joining us via Skype, Pete Scheidley, also known as Skier Pete.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me.
On the boards. And I'm really glad you're here because you, Pete, helped just explain this to me. But we'll get to that in a second. Just a couple things before we get started. Speaking of the boards, please, if you're looking for expert information on anything DVC, disboards.com. Scroll down a little bit to the DVC forums. There are 5 of them there covering every possible topic you would ever want to know about Disney Vacation Club. And we've also started a separate blog and Facebook group called DVC Fan. The blog is located at dvcfan.com. And if you do a search on Facebook for DVC Fan, you'll see our Facebook group there. Please go ahead and follow along as well. So lots of places for some great information, if I do say so myself. The blog is more a personal thing. And I've got a couple other people, a couple of the DVC members that are helping out, just kind of sharing our own personal observations and experiences, things like that. It's been a lot of fun. So, but in this one, because I am still new to this whole universe, and I've heard people talk about walking a reservation. And I kind of understood what they were doing, but not really. And so I posted something about it on the Facebook group, and people were trying to explain it to me in a Facebook post. This is why I like the boards. Facebook is good for hit and run, okay? Hit and run info. Like, here's a quick answer. But for that more detailed stuff, and we have, like, a man who can speak to that on many, many levels, those detailed posts, probably more than maybe any other poster in the history of disboards.com. Pete sent me a private message on the boards where he, in detail, explained this process to me. And I read it, and I kind of understood it, more so now. But then my biggest question is, really?
Yeah.
So now, I before we get too deep into the conversation, I just want to say that we recognize this is a controversial subject. There are people who feel that this is cheating the system in a way, using a loophole. And we've been here before. We've been here before with refillable mugs and other things that, and our policy has always been, if it is not hacking Disney's system, if it is not breaking a rule, it's fair game. It's up to Disney to close any loopholes. And I would imagine this is a loophole. So let's explain to people. Pete, I'm going to let you start. Explain to people, generally speaking, what is it we're talking about when we talk about walking a reservation?
So when you're walking a reservation, it's typically for a hard-to-get time period, a hard-to-get room. So usually we're talking about studios, ones that are harder to get, like let's say a boardwalk standard view during Food and Wine, the Animal Kingdom value rooms, which there are very few of. And people use walking basically to ensure that they get the dates they want. What you typically do is you go online in advance of your 11-month window. So let's say you're trying to book a room in the beginning of November. for that you would normally, you'd normally book that 11 months advance in beginning of December. Because you know that's a hard time to get a room, instead you go on a month or two earlier, September, which is a much easier time to get a room. You book a week or however many points you have. You book a period of time. Once you have that period of time booked, you've now blocked off the end of that period beyond that period of time to anyone else getting that room. So if you, let's say you book September 25th or something like that to October 1st, nobody can book that room that you've booked until October 2nd, because essentially you have to have 11 months advance. I hope I'm explaining this well, on that room. So once you get to, so now you have a 7-day period of time that's booked. You wait until near the end of that period of time, but not until past it. And then you call member services, or you can, I believe now you can even do it online, and you change your reservation dates. You move the reservation, as I said, if you book, say, September 25th to October 1st, you go on November 1st, and now you change that reservation to be from October 1st to October 8th. And then you can do that again 7 days later. You move it again, and then you move it again until you got the dates that you want. And it keeps anyone from booking behind you. Now, it only really works at the 11-month window, because if you think about it, if you try to use this at a 7-month window, the owners at that resort can come in and they can book a room in front of you because they already have access to those rooms. But you do see, if you pay attention to the availability charts, you do see pretty good evidence that this happens, because what happens is you see dates clear up behind the walking period. So, right at the 11th month, there's no availability, but at 10 months and 3 weeks, suddenly there's some rooms open up. So, as I said, I don't think it's a huge problem, but it is definitely used by some people for those very hard to get rooms, the studios, the very popular periods of time, early December, the Wine and Dine Marathon period at early November, which is very popular.
Well, what's the argument? What's the argument against this? Why do some people get very, very upset with this?
Well, I think the reason is you're essentially you're booking rooms that you're not using. And as you're moving the reservation, yeah, sure, you're opening those rooms back up, but people are trying to go on at 11 months and get those rooms, and they're not available. And in order to catch the rooms as someone walks past them, you got to be online all the time, or you got to be lucky with a wait list or something like that. So I think people are bothered that there's, basically they feel like people are booking rooms unnecessarily and preventing other people from getting those rooms at the time that they're first available.
Yeah, I guess if a lot of people are doing it at the same time, then yeah, they're taking things. Now, okay, anybody here done it?
I've never done it.
Never done it. I've
Never done it.
I've had clients do it, but never done it myself.
I just feel like it's a waste of,
Again,
a waste of time.
It's I'm in a very different situation because A, I live here. B, this is my job. So I can go on and see what's available.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'll do a couple nights over here. Did that at Bay Lake last week. Oh, there's 3 nights open in a 1-bedroom. Boom. Go ahead and grab it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be planning much of anything 11 months out.
But in the example that Pete gave, he started in September talking about a November reservation. To me personally, that's a whole lot of time and a whole lot of organization and a whole lot of, if you miss it by 1 day, you now have a reservation you don't want. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of time and effort that have to go into that. So is it really necessary? And for the ones he mentioned, it probably may be necessary. Value View, there's only a handful of those studios. So even the members sometimes can't get in over 7 months. But to me, it just sounds like an awful lot of work over a prolonged time period, and don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, like you're in trouble if something comes up at work and you have to go into work early, or you have a kid that's sick and you have to, like, if any kind of regular life things happen and then you miss that day, if you've been doing this for a few weeks,
Right.
you're toast.
But they could, I mean, if they end up not getting what they needed because they forgot to call, they could cancel the reservation, points go back in the account, and then they have to book a regular, like a boardwalk view instead of the, lesser cost room or whatever.
Yeah.
So even 11 months out, they hopefully would still be able to get in.
I'm taking a look right now at a studio at Copper Creek. I'm an owner at Copper Creek. I'm looking at my contract. There's hardly anything at 11 months right now. Hardly anything at 11 months.
Yeah.
So
People strategize. It kind of boggles my mind a little bit, the extent that some people go to do this. So when we used to fly in, we would plan what we were doing based on the price of airfare. So if you fly on certain days, it's a lot less money. And there were 8 of us flying. So, like we would fly out on a Tuesday typically, and we'd fly home on a Friday. And that many years ago, it just happened to be that those were the inexpensive days to fly. So we would try really hard. Now, if we couldn't get the days at the villa that we wanted, what we would do is we would stay at a value resort or at a moderate resort, whatever, the first night. And then sometimes we would even add a day to the end, which I don't recommend, because if you go from staying in a gorgeous Disney Vacation Club villa to staying at a value resort, it's kind of not the funnest way to end your trip ever. But
No, and that almost defeats the purpose, like what you're
Yeah.
saying. So you bought DVC, you're paying annual dues, you're paying tone at a particular resort, and now because you're working around other things in life, you're paying to stay at a hotel. In my mind, you've completely defeated the reason that you purchased
Right.
DVC. So when you start, when that has to happen to make it work, then I would say I understand why people are doing what they're doing, because it doesn't make sense to book a hotel room when you own DVC. So,
well, I somewhat agree with that. There are times I take a look, and I do this now every time I'm going to book a DVC room. I want to see what Disney has that room available for in cash. My points have a certain value to me. And, if that room is going for, $250 a night, and that ends up equaling about $10 or $11 a point, I'm going to pay the cash because my points are worth more to me than $10 or $11. But again, my situation's a little different.
but you would stay at a DVC resort. Her example was they would stay at a value or a moderate. So that makes, when you're valuing the points, I understand that's a good way to look at it too.
It has to be, yeah.
But
I'm
when
doing
you're
it
going
apples
from
to apples.
right, when you're going from a value, when you're staying at a DVC resort, like she said, for 6 days, and then you move to a value, in my mind, you're already paying to have an ownership. It should work for when you want to travel. So if walking reservations is what you have to do to get that, again, our situations all being a little bit different living here, then that's understandable why people are doing it.
And
yeah, like we didn't do it. We chose to stay at a value on the end of our trip because I didn't want to move our dates. I didn't want to sit there and move our dates by one.
Well, and then just to the example I was giving earlier with Copper Creek, with the studio. When I moved that to a 1-bedroom, lo and behold, there's plenty of availability for me at that, between that month 8 and month 11. It's like all blue. And so this is why people, and so that's why everybody says, buy the points based on a 1-bedroom because that's going to be a lot easier to get. But when that's not what you have and that's not what you bought and you don't want to add on, and this is the only way you're going to get to use those points you paid for, then maybe that's why DVC hasn't closed this loophole. Because, but it's a shame, isn't it a shame that people have to jump through these hoops?
I think so.
And I think there's a lot of people that do have smaller contracts that need to stretch them. I mean, I haven't had to do it myself, but the example that I used of Boardwalk, they have a standard view room, which is studios there or any of the standard views are less points, but it's only, I think, about 18% of the resort, so there's not a lot of inventory. I have a 75-point contract there that we bought for coming down for food and wine, and knowing the difficulty of availability, our plan was, 75 points, that'll get me 5 nights, 6 nights every year. But if some year I want to stretch it to 8, I got to get that standard room. So maybe that's what I got to do. I got to walk a reservation to get that, if I don't want to borrow points.
And did I ask you, Pete, have you done that? Have you done the walking a reservation?
I have not. I have done it in a very minor way in that I've booked a room a couple days early and then walked it a few days, but I've never done what I kind of described, people walking reservation for a period of time. I've heard of people doing that, but I have not myself. But I've also booked, as I said, I've used the walkers to book behind them. That's what we did our recent
sounds
boardwalk
like Game
stay.
of Thrones, the walkers,
Or like zombies.
Yeah.
They're like the White
sounds like
Walkers.
Game of Thrones or something, right? Yeah. So as I said, the rooms tend to open up behind people as they move their reservations, and I was able to piece together a 4-night stay at Boardwalk in a standard room without walking. But it was the same thing. You got to go on every day and look for that room to open up. It's not always easy, or you use the wait list, which is certainly wait list is no guarantee.
Yeah. I've had no luck with wait list yet at all.
I've had luck with it every single time
Me
I've
too.
ever
I'm-
done a wait list.
I'm 3 for
with-
3
I'm
on
with
wait
them.
lists. Meaning I've gotten it each time.
I'm 0 for 3.
I've gotten it each time as well.
Wow.
How about you with wait list, Pete?
I got very lucky with the Grand Californian, and I got in a 1-bedroom out there for 3 nights
Wow.
a couple years ago, which made me ecstatic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about a resort where you'd have to even if you own there at 11. Because if you don't own there, you're pretty much not staying there.
Yeah,
But-
and it came up at like 33 days before it opened up, and I was able to grab that. But
That's crazy.
Barely even have airfare.
That's crazy. Yeah, because a Grand Californian is. Am I right? That's
Yeah.
the toughest one to book.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I would agree.
That's a
Yeah,
hard one.
very hard.
And that's one where probably you got a lot of walkers,
Oh,
a lot of the California walkers, which means they're
Whoa.
stoned. And no,
you've got
Kidding.
you've got the people that paid to own there. I mean, that's the people that are spending $200 a point are spending $200 a point to stay at that resort. That's why that resort is able to secure the kind of money that it gets per point, is because people are going to spend it so they know they can stay there.
Right.
it's insane. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we hope that helped explain walking a reservation to you guys, and that is going to do it for this episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next week with another episode of the DVC show. Have a great week, everybody.